Hey, thanks for everybody for being here. About 12:15 here in New York. Central Park. 65 degrees Fahrenheit, so about as nice as it gets. Kind of a windy day, so as usual, apologies in advance if there's a little wind noise. Working on it. Go up to the reservoir, see the water. I think we're actually going to walk north to start. We went to the Conservatory Garden the other day, which was looking beautiful. And it was actually a fairly overcast, cloudy day. So I think on a day like this, should look even better. So we'll start there. And then we'll probably turn around, head south, see what else we can find. Let us know your name, where you're watching from. Always curious where people are. Thanks again for being here. Reservoir looks great today. Blue skies, blue water. It's a nice day, so people are starting to picnic again in the park. I walked through the great lawn the other day, which is where there's baseball fields, but a lot of people go to picnic, and noticed quite a few wine corks. So people are certainly enjoying themselves again. Honestly, I have no idea if that's allowed, but there it was. So we're coming up to the north side of the Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis Reservoir. Walked the loop a few times in recent videos, so feel free to check those out. But we're actually going to exit the reservoir up ahead, make our way north and find the Conservatory Garden, see how it's looking today with the sun out, clear blue skies. Hello, Lisa M. Thank you for being here. It is a gorgeous day, a little windy. We are working on our audio. I hope it sounds a little better. It's also a little bit of a test. We're not using the battery today, or rather we're using the phone's battery today. So I want to see how long it lasts. We packed a light, grabbed the camera, trying out a microphone. See how it goes. Let me know how things look, how things sound. Obviously, we'll keep working on it. But yeah, it is a beautiful day. Spring in New York City. Get a view of the 59th Street skyline. And further south.
I think she's ready.
Awesome, thank you. So here's our exit. We're gonna again head north, find the garden. And of course, in the background, you can hear the lovely sounds of New York City. Super familiar with of Central Park. We're towards the north end on the east side, facing Fifth Avenue, heading towards Conservatory Garden. I think we're on top of the 97th Street transverse, where the cars can go across the park without driving in the park. Crazy to think, not too long ago, cars could drive in the park. It took decades of debate, protests to change that. And it's really incredible to have a space in New York without cars. So, one tip, if you're ever in the park, is these light poles have numbers, and the first two numbers tell you the nearest street. So that one said 9722. Like I said, we were just crossing the 97th Street transverse, so we know we're near 97th Street. The other two numbers, I think if they're even, you're on the east side of the park. If they're odd, you're on the west side of the park. So 22 even, we're on the east side of the park. So if you ever get lost in Central Park, just look at the lampposts, look at the numbers, and they give you an indication of where you are. Kind of pre-iPhone, pre-Google Maps, etc. That's how you might navigate.
It's fun.
It's amazing. You can see people starting to come back out onto the fields, reading, picnics. It's what you like to see. Check out this tree we're coming up to. Walk underneath that. Mount Sinai in the distance on 5th Avenue. Take another look south. You can probably hear the birds. Beautiful day. So the Conservatory Gardens actually got, I think, the idea is there's a few sections, few gardens, and some of them have been under construction or repair, so we may not be able to see all of them, but we'll see as much as we can. Colors are really beautiful today. Stuff is still coming in, but you know, we keep coming back because every day there's more and more. Now, if you can, this is a pretty cool shot off in the distance. You can see what looks like a bridge. That's Park Avenue. And even further, obviously a much larger bridge. But the trains run over that nearer bridge on Park Avenue. actually posted a video of a walk we took on Park Avenue from 97th Street all the way down to 14th Street. So if you're interested in Park Avenue, take a look at that. Tons of flowers and plants in the middle of the avenue. So worth taking a look at that. Alright, so we're coming up on Conservatory Garden. The entrance is right here, and you can see there's a ton of construction on this nearest part, so we're going to walk through that, get to the parts that are not under construction. Let's take a look at this sign first. Restoration of the Conservatory Garden. The first restoration since 1937, so seems important. Completed in phases over several years, beginning in early 2022. So, like I said, there's a few sections to the park, and I think they're keeping, most of them open at any one time. So this is the first section under construction. You can still see some of the beautiful trees, but we'll make our way through where there's no construction. Check out this one. Amazing. Not used to this many people being here. But I think cherry blossoms are very popular at this moment, and this is one of the best places to see these blossoming trees.
I really want to do both. Do you not want to go up and around?
Right, let's take a panoramic first. Amazing.
Oh my gosh, look at.
So they have a ton of benches around this area, so usually you see parents with kids or people who just come to read or just come to sit. Or in that case, practice dance. So we'll walk up and see if we can get a good view of the whole gardens. Look at that. Incredible colors. Just beautiful. Hey, Ira, thank you for being here. It really is beautiful. This is the Conservatory Garden in Central Park if you want to read about it. And if you would, do me a favor, leave a like. It will help other people to find the channel, find the stream, and join us here today. And obviously, I really appreciate your support in advance. Probably among my favorite parts of Central Park. And for something as big as Central Park is, it goes from 59th Street at the south end to 110th Street on the north side. And multiple avenues wide. It's really beautiful. Hey Donna, thank you for being here. No, we just got started probably 15 minutes ago. And we're back at the Conservatory Garden. I know I had it in a Fifth Avenue video recently, but that was a kind of cloudy day. And I thought, you know, why don't we come on a beautiful day like this? This was probably the most striking part from that video because the blue flowers really stuck out even that day. Obviously still waiting for the fountains, but amazing nonetheless. So the noise in the background, they've been doing a ton of repairs and construction work around Central Park. I'm sure they're rushing to complete things before, you know, deep into summer when tons and tons and tons of people will be coming out. But as it gets nicer, already seeing a ton of people. Really is one of the most beautiful parts of the park. Very relaxing. If you want to see a little more of it, check out my Fifth Avenue video recently, Museum Mile. Took another look on a different sort of day. See some of the ducks. And other birds enjoying themselves, getting fed. This is Harlem Mere. So we're on the north tip of the park. Give you a different view of the Mere. So it is a gorgeous day, 65 degrees Fahrenheit, but windy. So if you hear some wind noise, Apologies, and I'm working on it. Yeah, Donna, it changes every single day, which is why we keep finding ourselves here. I know there's plenty to record in New York City, but Central Park is probably my favorite place to be. And as you say, it changes all the time. Harlemere is kind of a funny place. You do see fishing, which I always have a chuckle about the idea of fishing in New York City. Can't imagine it's the best tasting, but what do I know? So again, we're at the northeast tip of Central Park, and we're going to start making our way south and get further into the park. See what we can see. If you like what you see, leave a like. It'll help other people find us. And if you're new to the channel, take a look, check it out. We do primarily walks all over New York City. A few that are coming up as a preview. I walked Central Park West. Amazing older architecture and really classic New York, and tons of buildings that you'd have seen in different movies. And I did a sort of rush hour commute walk down Lexington Avenue at 5 p.m. Thought it would be interesting as the city, as you know, more and more people come out. Thought it would be interesting to see what busy New York looks like.
Oh, they are.
And if you're familiar with the channel, I'm a fast walker typically. So there's a lot of ducking and weaving as I try to make my way south during rush hour. Hey Roy, thank you for being here. SF, if I remember correctly. Oh, there's a cute Dalmatian. Don't see a lot of those in New York. One tip I would give if you're going to visit New York, especially after the pandemic, a lot of the public restrooms closed down and shops were not as inviting to people to just hop in and use their restrooms. The New York City parks really solves that problem, and for the most part they're fairly well maintained. So if you're out and about and nature calls, New York City parks actually have fairly decent infrastructure, and it's totally public, so you don't even have to pay or anything. Excuse me. Sorry. Donna, I definitely walk fast. Me, I'm working on it. Got places to be. The Lexington, even with the people that I was, walking by. I think we were doing almost 16-minute miles. I think it was 17. So still pretty fast, I think, for city traffic.
I know.
One day we'll do more of the perimeter of the island. I love to do the perimeter because the water is really beautiful. And if I sort of am not thinking about how fast I'm going, we can get to, 15 minutes. Guess it's my exercise. All right, so we're out of Conservatory Garden. We're going to make our way into the park, deeper, and see what else we can see. If anybody who's on is familiar with New York and New Jersey, one of our viewers has recommended we check out the Palisades, and I've been trying to figure out what's the best way to get there by public transportation. So if anybody has any tips on that, let me know. It was getting to look like the easiest way actually might be to walk across the George Washington Bridge into New Jersey. But I don't know if that's too far south. So let me know if you know. Wait for the bike to go by. We're back in kind of the core of the park, walking south. So as we walk, we'll start to see more of the skyline south of Central Park, which looks particularly beautiful on a clear day like this. And in fact, why don't we walk through the lawns? I don't think we'll get hit by a baseball. And you go to any of them in Central Park, you probably notice there's a ton of city sounds, but one of the more prominent things, and I don't know if you can see it, it's pretty small on my screen at least, but constantly helicopters over Central Park. A mix of flights. You can book an hour-long, something like that, ride on a helicopter, see different parts of Central Park. And then sometimes they're police flights, depending on what's going on in the city. But it's become a sort of, for better or for worse, Lisa I know is from New York. Ira, Donna, where do you guys watch from? I actually don't know if I know. Feel free to let us know in the chat if you'd like. I know Roy is SF, sort of blanketing the country. Donna says, great idea. That's what I need in order to keep up with me. Helicopter ride. Very funny. Don't these baseball diamonds look great? Alabama, beautiful. One of the few states I have not yet been to. Isn't it great? With YouTube, you can experience any part of the world, sometimes even live, any time of the day. Very cool. All right, so we've never walked this way. I'm hoping up ahead I can get out of this. And we don't have to circle back too much. LV, thank you for being here. New Hampshire, I bet it looks really spectacular this time of year. Happy spring, and thank you for being here. Okay, we're going to try to make up. Yep, there's where we can get out. So we're about 30 minutes in. We're doing a couple of tests today, so keep me posted on how things look and how things. We're trying out a microphone instead of just using the iPhone. So hopefully the audio quality is a little better. And I'm try to get past this music. So like I was saying, one test is microphone, trying to improve the audio quality. Still a little work to be done because I know there's probably still some wind noise, but I'll keep trying to get it better and better, improve your watching experience. And the other is we came without any chargers, so I wanted to see how long the phone would last, how long the gimbal would last. We're about 40 minutes in and still have 80% battery on the phone at least, so hopefully we're doing okay. Ira, Indonesia, wow, so we're truly global today. Thank you for letting me know. It's like putting pins on a map. Cool to see where people are from. And if you like the cherry blossoms, check out, I did a walk recently in the Brooklyn Botanic Garden. And honestly, it was pretty early still. So there's a part of the Brooklyn Botanic Garden called, I think it's called Cherry Walk, covered in cherry blossom trees, and those weren't blossoming yet, but they have a Japanese pond and water garden, and there were these hanging blossoming trees that were really spectacular. So if you're into that, look up that video and we'll go back. They have a map that tells me how the blossoms are coming in, and they're still coming in, so we'll wait a little bit till there's a more dramatic difference, and then we'll go back and see more. And there's also the New York Botanical Garden, which is in the Bronx. Have to head there. Haven't headed there since winter. So there's a lot more to see. All right, why don't we pause here and just take a look. So those buildings in the distance, that's kind of where we were walking from originally. We're going to keep making our way south, see some different parts of the park. On this beautiful spring day. Getting to be about 1 p.m. in New York. And approximately 65 degrees Fahrenheit. All right, I see some color in the distance, so we're going to make our way there. Gonna wait for some of the bikes to come by. And I guess I haven't made this disclaimer, but we are in Central Park, which is notoriously difficult to stream from, I guess because of the landscape, but sometimes just because of how many people are here. And it is a nicer day, so as we go farther south, there will be more people, and we'll see how the connection is. And obviously, I apologize in advance if it gets shaky at any point. As always, we will do our best. Check this out. Really beautiful. And I am not the world's best horticulturalist, so if you are familiar with some of the plants that we see along the way, feel free to let us know in the chat. So we've actually made it all the way to the west side of the park now. That's Central Park West. Yeah, LV, isn't it great? New York has been very funny lately. My wife and I went to dinner yesterday, not very close to where we live, so we both walked a couple miles, and it was in the 40s. Now we're back to 65. Everybody's out. The sleeves are coming up. New York has a funny way of going very quickly from winter to summer, often with very little spring in between. So that's a funny looking tree right there. And at first glance I wondered if it's a cell tower, but it does sort of look real. Sports are back. Sorry. Sorry if that got a little jumbly. We had to catch a soccer ball. Yoga with the baby. Hold on. More music. Let me go on mute. Sorry about that. I love YouTube because it brings us together, but it also does not like copyrighted music. So every now and then I have to go on mute. Apologies. Yeah, Ira, the colors are really spectacular. So we've come back now to the reservoir. It's actually hot out now. If you can see into the water, tons of ducks are back out. And if you can see towards the fountain, they're very small from this distance, but there are a ton of birds hanging out over there. Hopefully for them, the fishing is good. And in the distance, middle of the frame, is the Guggenheim. So the Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis. I'll have to read up on the history about why they gave her name to the reservoir. I know she was a great patron of New York City, and next time I go to Grand Central, I'll try to snap a picture, but there's a small plaque. Thank you. She was instrumental in helping preserve and protect Grand Central as a historic building and place in New York City. So I assume it has something to do with that. It's her protection of the beauty and history in New York. Hey Suke, thank you for being here. Pretty sure you're in New Mexico from prior chats, so covering even more of the United States. Thank you. And thank you for letting me know about the picture and the sound. Oh, Lisa M. finds the true facts as I stand here making things up. Thank you for sharing that. So it says Central Park Reservoir renamed in honor of Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis in '94 to commemorate her contributions to the city and because she lived nearby. So the southern end of the park tends to be the busier end. You can already start to see many more people. In fact, I'm having to look around, make sure I don't get in anybody's way. Two jazz bands about a few hundred feet apart. Yeah, LV, there are so many different parts of the park. You can really find anything you want. You want water, there's water. You want a gigantic lawn and field, there's that. There's shade under the trees. There's a castle if you want that. So if I remember correctly, there's an opening over this way. And we'll head inside the lawns.
Before you can complain, that's not fair. But now this guy has to wait.
It's a view of facing south, get the skyline. You can start to see the color on all the trees. Really spectacular. Building directly in the frame right now is the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Make our way in that direction. And you can see in the distance here Belvedere Castle. This would be a perfect day for a picnic in Central Park. So as we walk a little to our east now, Cleopatra's Needle, a gift from Egypt, a beautiful sight. Lisa M. is our resident Wikipedia expert. If you wouldn't mind looking up Cleopatra's Needle, sharing anything you can find, that might be interesting.
Who gave it to us? The French? Yeah, the French.
Okay, our expert has arrived. The obelisk, Cleopatra's Needle, was created around 1425 BCE in Heliopolis, Egypt, an area north of modern-day Cairo. I really can't imagine how they got it here. Must weigh several tons. But it's always an amazing sight. The Met has a beautiful Egyptian wing, huge collection, which has recently been undergoing some renovations. So if you're ever in New York, recommend checking that out. And that's the Met right there, so very easy to get to. All right, more information has been delivered. Removal of the obelisk and its transportation and was a significant feat of logistics, diplomacy, and engineering. It was installed in Central Park in 1881, so a year in the 1800s to deliver it. Just incredible. Really don't know how they did that. But we're lucky it's here. So we're walking south on the East Drive. There are drives throughout Central Park. Make our way in a bit. And we'll walk towards the Central Park Boathouse and towards Bethesda Fountain. If you were to make a right here, you'd be going into what's called the Ramble, which is this gorgeous winding series of trails. Incredibly easy to get lost in, lose your direction, but really beautiful. And it leads you to Belvedere Castle, but we've spent some time there, so I think we'll see some other things today. And here's even a sign for the Ramble, and you can get a sense of how maze-like the trails are. There's more people on now than earlier. I was saying earlier, one tip in Central Park if you do get lost is you'll notice the black lamps. And each of them is stamped with a number, 4 digits. And the first 2 digits tell you what street you are nearest to. So, next lamp we see, we will take a look and see what street we're near. And then the last 2 digits tell you whether you're on the east side of the park or the west side of the park. If it's even, it's on the east side. If it's odd, you're on the west side of the park. So it's a little bit of a navigation tool. Sometimes in the park, especially like in the Ramble, for example, it's even if you have a map or your phone, it can be a little difficult to know precisely where you are. So instead you use the lamps. So we're coming up to a black lamp now. We'll take a quick look and see where we are. I happen to know we're very close to Central Park Boathouse, and let this position. Hey Gregory, thank you for being here. Gregory asks, is this my first live stream? Black lamp says 7530. So we know we're near 75th Street in Manhattan. And 30 being even, we know we're on the east side of the park. Here's another one. 7528. So 75th Street and 28 being even, we know we're on the east side of the park. Hey, Gregory. Today is a little bit of a test. We're trying out a new microphone, trying to improve some of the audio quality. I think there's still some room for improvement with respect to wind noise. Thank you for being here and checking out New York City with us. Elaine, thank you for being here. Elaine says, thank you, I missed the seasons up there. Living on the Gulf Coast now. I'm very familiar with the Gulf Coast, Elaine. Thank you for visiting remotely or virtually. And wow, would you look at this? So this is the Central Park Boathouse. So if you had any other, I think the answer is yes. And up ahead, you can rent a paddle boat. Well, we'll take a look in a second. You can see. And Gregory, thank you. Time now, always enjoy the walks. I really appreciate that. We're always endeavoring to improve them, so hopefully you've enjoyed some of the changes. We've tried to incorporate maps and other things to shake things up a bit and create a little more of a sense of community, so you all can chat with me and make it more interactive. So thank you. So you can start to see. Painting in the park as well. Great, a little bit. You know, I think part of what I'm going to figure out is, you know, what's a good schedule for me and what's a good schedule for all of you, so that we can make it a little more regular and predictable. I had been thinking about the weekend, like Sundays. YouTube had not finished processing some of my pre-recorded videos, so we had to change things up because I'm trying to post more frequently and more regularly. I'm going to have to go on mute. Second. right, thanks for bearing with some of the transmission difficulties. The park does get tricky sometimes. Gregory, to answer your question quickly, about 18 years, which is kind of hard to believe when I add that all up. Yeah, the music is beautiful. The first gentleman, oh, I'm forgetting his name. He was playing Wagon Wheel, which is a great song, and he has this very raspy voice, but he always plays copyrighted music in YouTube, even when it's a cover and acoustic and very transformed into its own thing. Has a hard time with it. And then the classical gents, we actually saw them, if you check out section with them, so definitely check that out. And I took that for a few minutes so you get a much greater picture of what it's like to listen to them, so do take a listen. And the cellist and the violinist we actually saw once in Belvedere Castle, I think on our last live stream in Central Park, so they get around. But it's actually kind of cool to see them team up with Carlos, the guitarist, who usually does his own thing underneath Belvedere Terrace and the Belvedere Terrace Arcade. Kind of cool to see. Additional walkway. One sec.
Vendors do. Musicians just have to have talent.
So that gentleman, I didn't catch his name, but he was also playing some pretty great music. I wish I could share more of it, but again, I have trouble with YouTube every time I get too much into the stream, so apologies. He was playing Brown-Eyed Girl, I guess that's Van Morrison, doing his own spin on that. That was pretty cool. So this sheep grazing in the meadow, quite literally. So I can see on my screen the connection is kind of going up and down. The park, it's beautiful, but it can be very difficult to stream in it for various reasons, so I apologize if it kind of goes in and out. When I see it going out, I tend not to talk as much just because half the time I don't even know if you can hear me, and I know if it's cutting in and out, it doesn't sound that great, so. But we're gonna walk into Sheep's Meadow and check out just how many people are here. A child in one picnic just threw a ball at a family in another. Thank you, LV. Appreciate that. Good to hear. We are continuing to try to improve it. I know when I watch videos, it's usually the wind noise that can be most distracting or whatever, so we are going to try to work on that. So we're walking westward direction through Sheep Meadow. Busiest it's been so far this year. So and up thing that's more one of my favorite things to do. You can, I think if you're looking on a map or model sailboat pond just east of us as we stand right now on the opposite side of the park, but there's a Le Pan, if you're familiar with. It's a great way to great spot to read or just kind of people watch.
ice cream, hot coffee, girl ice cream, ice cream.
Can't get over how nice of a day it is. So I think I have a pre-recorded video from Central Park that'll come out soon. So we'll see more of the park that way. I think we'll actually head out of the park now and we'll walk 59th Street. And we might even head towards, let's see as we go. We might do 5th Avenue. Just since it's such a nice day, see what that looks like on a different day. And I think the connection might be a little more stable outside of the park today. We've been sort of spoiled by the park not being as busy, because it means we get more of the connection to ourselves. It's usually a little more stable, but the park is not as interesting if there are not as many people here. So it's always a balance. Heard that before, but the audio might have been tripping out. Been in the city for about 18 years now. Hard to believe it has been so long. So as we said before, there's these 4-digit numbers you can see on different lampposts. This one says W6003. The first 2 numbers tell you what is the nearest cross street. So in that case, 60th. So it's an easy wayfinding point. And the last 2 numbers, whether it's even or odd, tell you whether they're on the east or west side. That one was 03, odd, so we know we're on the west side. And we happen to be near what used to be called the Time Warner Center, now called, I believe, the Deutsche Bank Center, for fairly upscale shopping, if that interests you. There's also fine dining, if that interests you as well. So this is Columbus Circle, the southern and westernmost point of Central Park, 59th Street and Broadway. And we're going to make our way east along Central Park South, see some of the beautiful hotels. Gregory says, to me, fine dining is a hot dog and an orange soda. So if you look, it was very noisy back there. If you look up the Deutsche Bank Center, there's a restaurant called Masa. I should preface this by saying I've never eaten there, but it's sushi, and they recently raised their prices. I don't remember the exact number, but it's approximately $1,000 per person. And I think that's before drinks. So you might have to bring your own orange soda if you plan to go there. You might also need to take out a bank loan. But if you wanted some indication of how some people do it, there you go. So this is Central Park South, behind which is Billionaires Row, some of the most expensive real estate in New York City. Some of the super tall, Elaine, yeah, you might want to bring your own. You can see some of the super tall apartment buildings that have come up over the past several years. So in addition to your $1,000 sushi, if you'd like to put down maybe 15, 20 million, I'm sure there's a very nice apartment we can find you. If nothing else, I am sure the views are spectacular. So we're coming up on 7th Avenue, facing south, and as they say, practice, 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 if you would like to go to Carnegie Hall.
No problem.
All I can say is I'm sure it's a once in a lifetime experience. Check or cash? I do wonder if they do a credit check when you walk in. So this is the Marriott. In particular, a JW Marriott, which I think is one of their upscale brands. This one goes by Essex House. Can only imagine what one night with a view of Central Park goes for. And you probably have to make sure you're not facing the other direction. That would be disappointing. Yeah, Gregory. So Gregory says, when I was a student in New York City, I could get a street dog and a soda for 75 cents. You know, there are still sorry, the buses are so loud. Tour buses, so tours are back. Seems like. Or something. I guess some of those are New York City buses. Wonder where they're all coming from. But Gregory, there are still, next time we see a vendor, we'll see what the hot dog goes for, but there are still dollar pizza joints. I think, the recent inflation is making, it might be $1.25 now, something like that. It is still possible to eat in New York City on a fairly small budget, but it is, as with all things, no longer 75 cents. When we come up ahead, we'll try to get some prices and see how it looks. And this is 6th Avenue. And we actually need to do a 6th Avenue walk soon. It's a beautiful one, and you can go all the way south. I forget exactly what, I think it's become Church Street. I'm forgetting off the top of my head, but it's a beautiful walk, and you can take it all the way south to the end of the city. Well, there were no prices listed at that cart. We will continue our search. Or if they're not busy, we'll ask. Coming up on our right is the Park Lane and then the Plaza Hotel, world famous, which has been covered for quite a while in scaffolding. So hopefully we'll get a good view of it. And my hope is it's actually quite clean, so it should look really stunning. So we're coming up to 5th Avenue. For those keeping track at home. Here's a Sarah Beth's very popular brunch spot in particular. There's a few around the city. Still costs a little bit, but it's quite a bit less than masa. So this is the Plaza Hotel. Yeah, Gregory says he recently read about the pizza principle, which states that there is a linkage between the average price of a slice of New York City pizza and the cost of a subway ride. It has actually, interestingly, recently decoupled, and the reason it has decoupled is that during the pandemic, the state, which runs the MTA, the Metropolitan Transit Authority, which is our public transportation system, halted fare increases. So normally every year there's fare increases, and together pizza slices and the cost of a ride go up fairly close together. But we haven't raised prices in at least 2 years for the subway. But the same cannot be said for the slice of pizza. So my understanding is that the cost of a subway ride is about $2.75 and has been for some time, but a slice of pizza has gone up. And I think the average is now over $3. I forget if it's $3.25, $3.50. But like I said, there are still these dollar pizza joints. The quality is very different between the $3.75 slice and the dollar slice. But, whatever you enjoy and whatever fits your budget, we have it. So this is called Grand Army Plaza. There is another in Brooklyn that you may be familiar with, but this is the Manhattan Grand Army Plaza. And despite where I'm walking, they are not honking at me. So there's this beautiful fountain. You can see the Apple Fifth Avenue store. And if you want to continue your luxury shopping experience, across the street is Bergdorf Goodman, the department store. And here is our statue dedicated to William Tecumseh Sherman.
$40 altogether for 1 hour, and then finish in Times Square, Rockefeller Center. 1 hour for $40.
So if you didn't hear that, they are negotiating on a, I assume he's a peddy bike ride. $40 for 1 hour. Plus, I'm sure gratuity would be appreciated. So it's probably a little hard to see, but in the distance you can see these towers, metal towers. That's the Roosevelt Island Tram. And if you look up my recent videos, I have a Roosevelt Island Tram, which is also pegged at the price of a subway ride. So $275 gets you across to Roosevelt Island. It's great views, so I recommend that if you're in town. And we'll go back soon because Roosevelt Island has beautiful cherry blossoms and only some of them were blossomed, so we'll take another look soon. So I'm standing here. This is a recent addition to the park. Photographer Deanne Arbus. And if you're not familiar with Deanne Arbus, I would encourage you to look up her pictures. She did fascinating photographs, especially of people, but I don't know the best way to put it, but maybe not everyday people. So different sorts of people you might encounter in New York City. Different styles and so forth. She has a very famous picture of twins that, if nothing else, you may have seen and not known who the photographer was. But they're pictures you keep going back to look at because those people and the lives that they live, super, super interesting, and I encourage you to check those out. And a cool statue to have added to the park. Most of the statues in the park are of men, so it's also one of the few statues. Obviously the other famous one is the Women's Rights Pioneers Monument, which is another addition of women into the statues in Central Park. Yeah, Gregory, it's like it's so memorable. I don't know how else to put it. So I guess what we'll do, we'll walk into the zoo, we'll see that for a second, and then we'll walk back out to Fifth Avenue and just kind of walk up Fifth Avenue for a bit. For those of you who joined more recently, doing some tests today on the stream. One is we're trying out a new microphone, so hopefully the audio quality is a little improved. And we are sans battery, so we're just running off the gimbal and the phone because I wanted to test how long they last on their own. Looks like we're an hour and 45 in, and it says the phone still has 50%, which is pretty impressive. So. Trying to get a sense, because one of the walks I want to do with you guys, I love to walk the perimeter of the island, and I'm good for about 3 3 to 4 hours. Usually less. Let me state that. But if we're having a great walk, if the weather's good, wanted to have a sense of how long we could go if we really wanted to. So we just walked into the Central Park Zoo. This walkway is free. You don't need to pay to enter this part of the Central Park Zoo. And up ahead you can see a little section where you can watch the sea lions. On the right is the Arsenal, one of channel favorite Donna's favorite buildings, which is headquarters to New York City Parks. Always cool to stop and see that when it happens. Didn't even know what time it was, but kind of lucked out with that. Perfect timing, as they say. Unfortunately, I guess you noticed at the beginning of it, you do see the animals ringing the main bell. Underneath are other animals that used to dance, and they haven't danced recently, so I think it unfortunately is in need of repair, and hopefully they'll do that soon, because it's always a fun thing to see, especially for the kids. But I'm sure it is quite old. I don't remember the exact year. Let's take a look at the Arsenal while we're here. And yeah, Donna mentioned the Woolworth building, which is a spectacular early skyscraper. Very ornate design. Recently had a penthouse, may still be for sale, I don't know. Something like $100 million. So again, if you found some change behind the couch cushions, something to consider. But the next nice day, I think we will head towards that area and do the Brooklyn Bridge and some of Lower Manhattan. We haven't really done that on a live, so I've been waiting to get this microphone and some other stuff to improve the audio quality because it's very windy on the bridge. Yeah, Gregory, check out my, you may have already seen it, but I have a Fifth Avenue Museum Mile video posted maybe yesterday. And we checked out some of the amazing architecture along Fifth Avenue. So this is Temple Emmanuel. You know, I think when most people think of some of the religious facilities along Fifth Avenue, they maybe think a little farther down. But I think Temple Emmanuel is a really spectacularly beautiful building. We haven't started watching it yet. We were waiting for the season to finish so we could binge it all in one go. But we're planning to watch The Gilded Age. And I know they did a lot of filming in actual period residence. Some outside of New York City, because some of the really spectacular and really, really large mansions are outside of the architecture and what I think of the So that's a 7th Regiment, 17th, so World War I. Unfortunately, the app I'm using doesn't. Yeah, Gregory, it's two shows. The Gilded Age has less substance. So if you thought already that Downton had no substance, at least what I heard was maybe the Gilded Age has even less, but I will have to see and judge for myself, if only because I'm really interested in New York City history and the architecture, if not the drama. Though the stories about the 400, which was this list of high society during the Gilded Age. Suffice to say, there are some interesting stories that come out of that. Elaine and Donna have made a real estate deal, so let's hope that comes together. So, New York is a funny place, and I'm a massive supporter of public transportation, bike riding, but this is a sidewalk, and if you do visit New York, you are not supposed to ride your bicycle on the sidewalk, especially when there are 5-6 people, crowds. So this is the Frick Mansion, which is now home to the Frick Collection. The collection itself is currently at another location, which has been renamed right now Frick Madison. Used to be called the Brewer, and for a time the Metropolitan Art Museum used that location, so it was called the Met Brewer. As you can see, the Frick is undergoing some renovations, so it'll be back at some point, but at the moment, if you want to see the Frick collection, you go to Madison Avenue. That's a statue, Richard Morris Hunt. Well, Gregory says he has a connection. Someone was on the original 400 list. Maybe they will be in the TV show. I don't know. Yeah, Gregory. So Gregory says the Frick collection at the Brewer has never looked better. It's really interesting for me for two reasons. One reason is it's interesting to see an art collection, the same art, but in two different locations. And the Frick Mansion, as you imagine, is a ornate, old style, in an American way, luxurious mansion. And the Met Brewer is more of a modern art facility. So to take art from one environment and put it in a totally different environment is really interesting. And then the second interesting thing for me is it sure feels like, at least in the United States, only in New York would you have an extra museum lying around. And when you needed to do repair work on your museum, you could just pack up your collection and put it in a spare museum. Okay, I said we were going to go up Fifth Avenue, but we're going to take one detour, which is to see the model sailboat pond, which I was saying earlier is a great place to have lunch and sit. And only once recently have I seen the model sailboats, but we'll see if there's any boats. And then we'll go back to Fifth Avenue. Yeah, Gregory, that's right. So Gregory says, I like how all the paintings are seen without all of the distractions of the Frick Mansion. Yeah, that's what makes the comparison so interesting. You're really looking at the art instead of the art and the environment. Okay. Unfortunately, there's more music. And then head back to Fifth Avenue.
You look a pistol? Goes into the store?
So again, if you're in the park and looking for a less expensive bite to eat, I recommend going there.
We're gonna go past this.
So we're going to head back to Fifth Avenue and keep walking north.
Corey had asked William to get a bag.
So where we just were is called Pilgrim Hill. And there's a statue of a pilgrim, although I don't remember which, unfortunately, so I can't say that off the top of my head. But we were there recently because when the first early cherry blossoms began to come out, that was probably the best visual of them in Central Park. And then later, there's another section of the park called Cherry Hill, which a couple weeks later took over as the most beautiful spot. But it's funny, in Cherry Hill, most of them are already, we've had some cold weather, so they're not looking as bright and clean as they did when they first blossomed. So there's this short little window where you have to go over if you really want to see them. Another reason why we keep coming back to Central Park, because every time you come, it looks a little bit different, and sometimes a lot different. So this is the French Consulate. You can see, even on the side streets, some really spectacular architecture. We'll do some of the side streets sometime soon. If you hit !weather into the chat, Nightbot should give us a quick update, but when I left, it was about 65 degrees Fahrenheit. One of the warmer days we've had so far. And it's Friday, so everybody's, getting out of work, hopefully taking a half day. Yeah, it's really like a perfect New York spring day. I'll have to listen to and watch the video later. I don't know how much wind noise you're hearing. Unfortunately, it is pretty windy today. Unfortunate for the purposes of the stream, but for walking around, it's beautiful weather. I don't know if you saw that woman's t-shirt, but it was a t-shirt for famous Sammy's Steakhouse, which unfortunately I believe did not survive the pandemic, but was this Lower East Side, below ground, kind of basement level Romanian steakhouse. The food was very Eastern European in nature, and there was a gentleman who stood at a small Casio keyboard and played music. Not necessarily the best music, but it was a raucous, good time. And they were known for, if you ordered hard liquor, it would come out in a plastic bucket that had been filled with water, so whatever you ordered was encased in ice. Sometimes hard to describe why that had charm, but it did.
What?
Yeah, Elaine, I mean, it like, we've only had a few of these days so far, and then it got cold again or rained. But these are, there's probably 7 days like this every year. Let this guy go by. Too much music. There's only like 7 or 10 days like this every year, and they're just the best. So we're coming up on the Albertine. And so these are the buildings that Gregory was mentioning before. So first on the Albertine, it's I always encourage people to look it up. So my wife found this. It's a bookstore, but to just call it a bookstore is to do it a disservice. Look it up. It has the most beautiful ceilings of any building, let alone of any bookstore you can imagine. And while the sign says there are books in English and French, I think we only saw books in French. So just know what you're in for when you go to the Albertine, but it's really spectacular. And anybody's welcome to go. It's not like it costs money or anything. You can just go in there and browse. And I'm going to try to safely make it across the street, not get hit by this car. And then we'll look at the buildings. So these are just some of the most spectacular mansions on 5th Avenue. And really it's from end to end and from 78th to 79th. So if you go to the Met, I would walk over to 78th and 79th Street, check out the buildings, and go into the Albertine and check out the bookstore and just look up. Just don't forget to look up. But the ceilings are It's really unbelievable. So we made it to the Met. So this, it's funny to call this a little building, but smaller building, at least compared to some of the apartment buildings nearby. It's the American Irish Historical Society. And then up ahead, there's another mansion that Donna asked about the other day, which we learned was owned by a, I think that was the tobacco magnate, but more recently owned by the Mexican billionaire Carlos Slim. And we'll probably, my wife and I, we will probably go to the Met this weekend. We've been meaning to go. There's an exhibit of Winslow Homer, and I think there's a new fashion exhibit, and those are actually really interesting. So once we go, I'll have more to report on what's happening at the Met. And this, at the next corner, is the mansion I was just mentioning. Is that right? How many buildings does he own? Does he own others as well? Or I'm confusing Benjamin Duke and what's the brother's name? Because weren't there brothers? There's too many Dukes. Really beautiful building. So it's funny, the other day they had the sign, the other day the advertisement they had up was for the Winslow Homer exhibit, but it went back to the Radical Draftsman. Wonder why. Yeah, that's my confusion, Gregory. So we walked past earlier the James Duke mansion, and then now the Benjamin Duke mansion. Makes me think of the movie Trading Places. Aren't they the Duke brothers? And Donna, her third favorite building now. A true real estate shopping spree. I mean, it's amazing as you walk. Obviously you have to be interested in this particular kind of Beaux Arts style, but you know, there's 2 miles of gorgeous buildings on 5th Avenue up here, north of 59th Street. Gregory says James Duke was the father of Doris Duke. Wow. Quite a family. All right, so I think we are coming to an end. So I think what we'll do for that is we will walk into the park, we'll go to the reservoir, and then we will sign off from there. Got about 2.5 hours in.
We don't have to repaint the bedroom.
And hopefully a useful test of everybody being here along for the experiment. We will continue to do more of these, especially now that I know what the phone and the gimbal are capable of. And I'm going to the camera store this weekend. It was closed for Passover, but I'm going to go to the camera store and get a couple of accessories for the microphone, so hopefully we can even reduce the wind noise a little more. Yeah, Donna says fourth favorite thing is the reservoir. The reservoir is really spectacular. It is always beautiful. It changes year round. I will say I always do a walk on the reservoir during winter, and it does ice over on the walking path. And even with a gimbal, you can sometimes see my slipping and sliding. So that's the one time of year it's probably not as advisable to but I go very slowly. That is the one time of the year, Donna, that I walk as slowly as I am capable of. Maybe the only time of the year. Yeah, LV, these, the trees here, really spectacular. We're going the other way, but in the distance to our left is a great statue of Alexander Hamilton. This is true. I try, but almost invariably lapse into my normal gait. When you see my next Lexington Avenue video, you can see me walking, what I considered fast. So you can see what my commuting speed looks like. One of these days, my wife will join us on a walk, and that's just about the only time I'm capable of trying harder to slow down for her sake. So we will do that, and it will force me to walk slower because in order for the microphone to work for both of us, I will simply have to. Back at the reservoir where we began, and we're going to make our way over there towards the Guggenheim and the Smithsonian Design Museum. And as always, just want to say thanks to everybody for being here. I love doing these walks, and it is made far more enjoyable when you guys are here, have your company. You get to share the New York experience together. Many of you are now very familiar faces, so thank you for coming back. And if you do enjoy these walks, leave a like, subscribe. If you know others who might enjoy them, please do feel free to share them. It helps grow the channel and more people join the chat. And that support helps to keep us going. So thank you in advance for any of that. It is appreciated. If you were here or watching the channel over the past few weeks, this inner area is called the Bridal Path, which I guess has historical horse connotations. But this is where the first cherry blossoms bloomed, and it really looks spectacular. I have some shorts, which are the short YouTube videos of them, so take a look at those, and you can see even in just 2 or 3 weeks how different the park can look. Oh wow, Action Kid is here. Action Kid, thank you for being here. And when we had our Easter bonnet parade, I saw that you saw me say hello to New York City Walking Show. So thank you for thank you for that. That was great. And I hope your move to Florida has been a success for you. And I'm loving that Elaine, Donna, and others, are meeting and making this a shared experience in the chat. So thank you for that. If you like the reservoir, I took a video recently of sunset over the reservoir, and there's no walking, no talking. You can hear the city and you can hear some of the wildlife. So hopefully take a quick look at that. I think it's a kind of interesting one. It's not our usual type of video, but if you really like the reservoir, I encourage you to take a look at the sunset video. That's right, Elaine. Elaine says, Action Kid left the Northeast like I did. I've been here for 18 years, but wasn't here before then. I think it's, it's an amazing big country. Every place has its own unique vibes and people, food, culture. So hopefully, have been good for and actually All right, so for better or for worse, the wind is picking up and the connection is getting a little less stable. So I'm Mark to rewatch. We started actually right here at the reservoir, made our way north. And so definitely go back into that. And in any case,